let's switch back over and introduce Scott Lewis, the CEO of Spartan Investment Group, the master of intent, the guy who puts the power behind purpose. Scott Lewis.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
There's a 12% chance I'm going to get this right here, but we'll see. Well, good morning, best ever. I want to start with a question. How many of you know exactly why you're here? I was really hoping that there was a couple hands that didn't go up, because if everybody put that up, then this would be really tough. So over the next 20 minutes, for those of you that did not raise your hand, we're going to kind of walk through a couple of things that can help you find your why. I'm going to first take you through a couple of my whys. One is an officer in the United States Army, and the other is a CEO of Spartan Investment Group. Then I'm going to ask you some questions to stimulate some thought that you can think about over the next 48 hours as you navigate the Best Ever Conference. And then I'm going to show you a couple of things for those of you that haven't quite found your why yet that you can do to get out there and you can find your why. And then I'm going to leave you with some parting thoughts. So what does why look like? So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is I'm an officer in the United States Army. Reservist, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. I put on my camouflage pajamas and hide in the woods. But I started in 2007, and when I joined the military, I was 27 years old. And I was a regional sales manager in Chicago, had a six-figure job, and I gave up everything to join the military. Well, why would I do that? As the CEO of Spartan, I'm a part of a mastermind group with some other CEOs. And at our last meeting, we were drinking some beers, and they were curious as to my military service because they hadn't served. And they were asking me, like, hey, can you still get called up? Can you be deployed? Yeah, I can. I mean, as a reservist and a National Guard, guys, those of you that are in the audience that have that experience, it's not a really likely scenario, but it is there. I'm like, why would you do that? This video says why.
Here in America, we will have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Regardless of whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, it doesn't matter if you are black or white or Asian or Indian, or any other ethnic group. It doesn't matter what your country of origin is, or the spelling of your last name. It does not matter if you are Catholic or Protestant, Muslim or Jew, and it doesn't matter if you don't believe at all. It does not matter if you're rich or poor or common or famous. In this country, in these United States, under those colors of red, white, and blue, in this country, all Americans are created free and equal, and we will rise or fall based on our merit, and we'll be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. That is the core organizing principle of the United States of America. And that is why we fight.
When you find your why, when you understand your purpose, you'll find yourself being able to push yourself further than you ever thought you could go. You'll sign up for things that you never thought you would do, like giving your life for a cause, or spending months in a dusty village in Africa building a well for people that couldn't do it themselves, or spending 36 hours in the emergency room providing care to patients that have come in because of wildfires, or going months without a paycheck so that your employees don't have to. When you find that why, that's what you can do. So why do I do it for Spartan? That elderly gentleman on the top left there, that's Richard. Richard and his wife Pam have built a storage that we just purchased over the last 30 years. Richard is a great American. He's a Vietnam vet, he's disabled, he was Special Forces in Vietnam. On that day, at that closing table, the Spartan team helped Richard and his wife achieve a dream. We helped them achieve the dream of financial independence. We gave him enough cash to pay off his house, and Richard financed the deal for us. So we gave him an annuity for 10 years so that him and his wife can live into their late 80s and not have to worry about receiving a paycheck or not have to have any financial worries. That's why I do it. The two gentlemen in the top right, top one's Leo, bottom one's Brandon. Met Leo when I was 5. Met Brandon when I was 11, 39 now. We're still best friends to this day. Both of those gentlemen are investing in Spartan deals. Both of those gentlemen are receiving returns from our deals. Both of those gentlemen are using part of those returns to fund their kids' college. That's why I do it. Building in the bottom left, it's a self-storage. It's beautiful to us. Now, some of you might have just snickered, like self-storage isn't beautiful. Well, those of you with ugly kids who think they're beautiful, well, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, that's our baby, right? So we get to take raw land, and we get to develop it into something beautiful. No more Snickers. A propane tank. Why would you put a propane tank up there on why? Well, it's not about the propane tank. It's about what it symbolizes. And that propane tank symbolizes creativity and the ability to learn something new every day. That's at our RV park in Odessa, Texas. It wasn't there when we bought the park. But some folks said, hey, you got a captive audience of 116 RVers, and there's a lot of RV parks that are just around that area. They all need propane. Well, that's a good idea. So we had to stand up a propane business from scratch. Never knew how to do it before. That's why we do it. It's because every day it's something new. But the most important reason, the why I'm up here, are those 5 folks centered there. That's our Spartan core team. And as their CEO, I'm responsible for providing the resources that they need every day to get the job done. I am responsible for setting the direction of the company so that all of us understand our true north and we're all rowing in the same direction. Now, some of you are probably thinking, what a dick. He didn't even put his family up there. My wife's in one of those pictures, so she works for our company. So that's also why I do it. It's because as a family, we get to do the family business. So best ever guest, let me ask you some questions to stimulate some thoughts. Those of you that are doing opportunistic or value add plays, you got to deal with contractors, right? Got to do it every day. And that sucks. Even the good ones we have problems with, right? It's construction. It's inherently complex. It's difficult. But every day we get out there and we do it. Those multifamily guys in the room, why do you deal with tenants? I don't, but you guys do. You're like, well, no, we don't. We got property management companies. Oh, that always works out, doesn't it? I heard some snickers. What happens if the property management company goes south? Right? You got to get in there and you got to do it. How many of you risked everything on your first deal? Nobody did? All right, there you go. I was like, am I the only crazy one up here? So I pushed in all my chips. I tapped my 401k. I tapped my father-in-law. We got that first deal done. It's what seeded Spartan. This one's for Joe. How many of you put yourself out there every day on a podcast? When Joe started doing his podcast, nobody was out there doing a daily real estate podcast. He had to go out and break trail. And by nature, that's not his nature. He struggled with that. But you know why he did it? Because he understood his why. This one's for my partner. Why do you scoop poop out of a shower? This has a special place in his heart. So he calls me one day, and he's like, guess what I'm doing? I'm like, I don't know, man. Where are you? He's like, DC. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything good. We have a project there that's kind of going sideways on us a little bit. And at that time, he had to get out, and he had to go scoop poop out of a shower because it was backed up. Why? Because we have investors in that deal, and it's our responsibility to do whatever it takes to take care of them. And that's what we did. And now the project's back on track and going, and Ryan's a little dirtier than he was when he started the project. Those of you that have a W-2 job, why did you take leave to be in this room today? And that's the question I want you to think about as we go through the next 48 hours of why you're here. So let's take a couple minutes and let's talk about finding your why. So I'm going to admit, best ever guests, I am not the renowned expert on finding your why. Have I found my whys in 2 places? Yes, I have. But really, Mr. Simon Sinek is kind of the thought leader on finding your why. So if you're not familiar with Simon's work, I highly recommend that you look him up, read some of his books, watch his TED Talks. It's really, really life-changing. But for today, let's look at 3 things that you can do, not only over the next 48 hours, but over the next 90 days, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long it takes. In order to find your why, the first thing you got to do is you got to know yourself. How many of you think you know yourself? That's good. Not very many hands went up. We don't. there's a concept called the Johari window. It's your blind spot. Some of us, that window, it's like a little tiny hole. Other have a mountain view panoramic, right? It just depends. But how do you get insight into that blind spot? Well, a couple things you can do. Take some personality tests. Myers-Briggs, DISC, managing by appreciation, whatever. There's a million of them. I've taken a bunch of them. And damn if those things don't peg me every time. Every time I get the results, I'm like, that's bullshit. And then I read it and be like, damn it. It's exactly who you are, right? Like, how can these 26 questions sum up 39 years, 49 years, 26 years? Like, but they do. Talk to your friends and family. If you've got the right friends and the right family, they're going to be brutally honest with you. They're going to tell you the truth. You're going to be sitting down with a beer with your buddy being like, man, I want to get that money. That's all I want. And he's looking at you like you're crazy. Like, man, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me like that? He's like, dude, you've literally been wearing that shirt for a week, and I'm pretty sure you owned it in high school. You're not motivated by money. What would you do with money? And that might cause you to take a step back and be like, well, being motivated by money sounds good. And like buying a big house sounds good, and some people are, and that's perfectly fine. But you got to understand what it means for you. Before you start, you got to really know where you're going to go. It's really played out, but the old quote from Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland, Alice to the rabbit. Hey, which road did I take? Rabbit to Alice. Well, I don't know. Where do you want to go? Alice to rabbit. Well, I don't know. Rabbit to Alice. Well, then any road will take you there. So if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. So really, start with that desired end state, 5-year goal, 10-year goal, whatever you want to call it. And know the road to get there is going to be difficult. There's going to be detours. There's going to be switchbacks. You're going to like get in an accident because somebody that was texting on their phone next to you derailed your plans, right? It's all going to be there. Before you start that journey, understand the sacrifices that you're willing to make. Do not start that journey without understanding those sacrifices. It would have been foolhardy for me to join the military in 2007 if I wasn't willing to give my life. There were 2 wars going on, and anybody that thought that they were going to join the military and just have a cush office job during that time was in a fallacy. And if I didn't understand that sacrifice and I wasn't willing to make it, I would have gotten deployed somewhere and realized, holy crap, what am I doing? This was dumb. But I didn't. I understood that sacrifice and I was okay with it. So luckily I didn't have to write that check, but some of us did, and they were okay with that because it's a volunteer force. But understand that sacrifice. Some people are willing to give up everything. And it doesn't matter if you do or not. It's just understanding that before you start. So before you start, you got to gather some tools. So what do those tools look like? So I'm going to give a story here. So I'm a lawyer, right? I'm not really, but. And I'm in my office one day, and I'm like, I am done. I am not writing another legal brief. I quit. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to dance. And I'm going to guess that most lawyers are not very good at singing and dancing. Maybe. There could be some in the room that are, but I'm just saying maybe not. So maybe I've got to do some retraining. Maybe I've got to go and get some training on how to sing and dance. True story. When we're done working, my wife wants to open up a dog rescue, but she's never done it. So perhaps she should go over and volunteer at a dog rescue and get some training so that she understands what's required of her. Do you have the right support network? You're starting to, with folks in this room that you will network with, but do you have the right friends and family? If you don't, you might make some tough choices. I didn't. I dropped some friends because they weren't the friends that when I told them, I'm like, hey, I'm going to invest like most of my net worth in this real estate deal, they weren't the friends that are like, hell yeah, man, let's how we support you. They were like, ooh, dude, that sounds risky, man. How many of us have those people in our lives? Yeah. The old adage is you are a part of the 6 people you spend the most time with. Make sure they're the right 6. So just really quick, some final thoughts before we kind of open it up for a little bit of Q&A. It's not easy to find your why. Those youngsters in your room, you're like, damn, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I was 27 when I joined the military. I was 34 when I started Spartan Investment Group. Some of us, my business partner, he knew he wanted to be an airline pilot at the #1 airline since he was 13. So for 20 years, he pursued that dream and he achieved it. Some of us might get older, might get into the latter parts of our life. Colonel Sanders, How many people, anybody know how old he was when he started franchising? In his 60s. The beloved Colonel who brought us crispy chicken. It's amazing. Right? He was in his 60s. So those of you that are a little bit older in the room today being like, man, these young guys, they figured out this shit so early. It doesn't matter. You can still find your why at that age. Resilience is the key. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get punched in the face. It's going to be tough. It's going to suck. But you got to stick with it. You can't let it go. When you find that why, that end state, and you understand your sacrifices, operate within those constraints and never quit. So as I mentioned, Simon Sinek is kind of the premier thought leader on understanding your why, finding passion and purpose. There's a lot of other authors out there, but I like Simon's work the best. I like it so much that for those of you that are interested and you swing by our booth and you sign up on our form, we are actually, throughout the conference, we're giving 5 copies away of Start With Why and Finding Your Why. And we'll hit you up on the Hoova app if you've won as we draw them throughout the conference. Last tidbit before I open it up for a couple of questions. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Every one of you has taken that single step. You're in this room today. You've taken that single step. Some of you are hundreds of miles into your journey. Some of you may be approaching the end of that journey, but it doesn't matter. I highly encourage each of you to review the agenda for the best ever. Really figure out which events are the ones that are going to be the most impactful for you. I highly encourage you to do that. And figure out who you want to speak with that can help you find your why. And with that, because my time is running out, I'm going to open it up for 1 or 2 questions if anybody has any questions in regards to finding your why. Well, thank you very much, best ever guests. I hope you have a great conference. Ben and Joe have put together an action-packed 2 days for you. I highly encourage you to sit in as many of these events as possible because they've got a badass lineup of speakers that are really experts in their fields. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ben.